Hey folks, welcome back. We're going to be doing the commentary for Goblins tonight. So, welcome in, have a seat, grab a drink, let's go ahead and get down to it. So, I'm sure that I'm going to be butchering this poor man's name, but I've always been a fan of David Szymanski's work. I loved Iron Lung, I loved Squirrel Stapler, I loved Goblins, I loved Dusk. All the games that he's done have always been really, really fun, and I've always had like a really, really good time playing them and stuff. And Goblins was literally no different compared to all the other games that I've enjoyed. So there's really not too much going on here. It's kind of like a brainless boomer shooter. In many ways, you just walk around, kill goblins, you know, they're fucking around with the various environments that you're going and running through and stuff, and there's really not much to it. With most of his games, they're very, very short, and I like that. I like it mainly because as I get older, I don't really have a lot of time to go and just do these long 60, 70 hour fucking, you know, journeys anymore. So with all of his games aside from Dusk is about 4 or 5 hours long, depending on how hard you're really gunning it out. You know, you can normally beat all of his games in like a single sitting. It's like that with Squirrel Stapler, it's like that with Iron Lung, it's like that with Goblins. Like, Goblins is literally only, I think it's like a little over a half hour long. So it was actually kind of, it was kind of interesting and stuff, and I actually really, really enjoyed it. You know, I had a good time with it. But there's not really much of a story to it. It's just one of those silly, brainless, just kind of flat-out goofy games that you go and you play when you just don't have shit to do. And it was just a really, really nice journey. With Goblins, I actually had to do 2 runs of. The first run, for some weird-ass reason, did not save right. At all. It did not. And so when I went ahead and, like, this is around the time I started having issues with the capture card. So when I went to go and save it, it was like, oh yeah, we cannot save the file, and I looked into it and it was a problem with Game Capture HD. So with Game Capture HD, I did not know that after a while it would fuck up your OS. Nobody had ever made mention of this. It wasn't until I found like a bunch of forum posts that were talking about it happening on Windows and all this other shit, and so I just kind of sat there and I said to myself, oh, okay, well, yeah, this is a problem. Let's go ahead and see what we can do about it. Well, it turns out the only real fix is to reinstall the entire OS. So people at the time were recommending me going and using OBS. And I'll be honest with you, I never really cared for OBS, XSplit, any of that crap, really. You know, because there's a very strenuous setup when it comes to it, and it can also be very hardware demanding on top of it. And with me using the laptop I had at the time, even with me running recommended settings and everything else, I found that it was incredibly sluggish and just very, very hardware hungry, so I was relegated to going and trying to film it on Game Capture HD, which really wasn't that great of an experience. At the time, I was unaware that the capture card that I was using, the HD60S Plus, was dying. It just kind of seemed like something that was randomly happening, and you know, I would go and I would film it and it would throw back an error. And then this was also around the time as well where I hadn't quite learned yet that not every single game that you play is going to play well with your capture equipment. So I said, oh fuck, here we go. And so with Goblins, it was very, very touch and go. I had one run where I just had the game not saved correctly, like the MP4 was just like, nope. And then I had another run where I had made it all the way to the end, and the game had crashed, and I said, oh fuck. And so it was just really kind of one of those weird things, and I was sitting down and, you know, I love this man's games so much, they're just so much fun. And yet I found myself having discrepancies with it, you know, and this is also around the time where I learned that Unity just, in general, does not like being captured by much of anything. Like, it does have issues with it. So I sat down and I said to myself, okay, well, do we just want to keep trying to do runs of this, or do we want to sit down and say, oh, okay, you know, we're just going to move on to another game. So with the game being only 30 minutes long, I felt like I had the luxury at the time to go and actually do multiple runs and stuff, so it wasn't super horrible or anything. It was just it was just like, oh, this didn't work. Okay, well, we can go back and do it again. And so I had finally gotten the runs that I needed in the door, and then I finally managed to go and get a flawless recording. And at the time, I did not know that there was a whole smorgasbord of issues within macOS that were kind of contributing to the problem with recording everything. And so I record direct to NAND, more or less. You know, I don't record to like external storage media or anything like that. I just kind of go and record directly to the internal. That way I don't have that buffer zone of the USB there. And then later on I'll go and stick it on a piece of removable media and then just, you know, go and do my thing from there. So I didn't know at the time that I had indexing on the MacBook Pro. And so the reason why this was important is because with indexing on, it was eating the crap out of my processor. You know, with the 2015 having just enough CPU speed to go and do recording, indexing really isn't that much of something that I can go and actually tolerate in the background. It's not like it was rocking a 12-core Xeon or anything like that. So what would happen is I would start the recording. macOS would literally sit there and say, oh shit, there's data being written to the drive. Quick, we must index it. So I noticed past a certain point the indexing issue was so goddamn bad that I was noticing past a certain point that I would go, and since I have to sit close to everything just to somewhat see what the hell it is I'm doing, I would notice that even at 720p, if I would go and look over to the right, that I would be dropping frames and my CPU would be hot as hell. I said, oh, that's very, very strange. Well, whenever indexing is on, I can expect my CPU to jump up to like 77C, which is pretty goddamn hot for a basic task. So I sat there and eventually I was just going through all of my system settings and I noticed that indexing was on. I said, oh, that's very strange. And so I said, you know, this is not going to go and this is not beneficial to me. I don't use search. There really is no reason for me to have indexing on. I normally leave it off. Every machine that I've had that has ran macOS has had indexing off. Well, at the time, I had recorded other games on a different install of macOS, and I didn't have an issue. And I said, oh, that's strange. So I noticed that when I did a fresh install of Monterey, that indexing, even though I was restoring directly from a Time Machine backup, after going and reinstalling the OS, that it was still, even though my settings were backed up, leaving indexing on. So the main issue was like, okay, well, oh wow, I hear you coughing down there, give it a rest, hairball. But God, this dog, goddamn grumpy ass dog. But yeah, I noticed that, you know, since it was basically indexing it while I was recording, it was eating up pretty much the entire CPU. And so I'm just sitting here saying to myself, why is this a thing? So I went in and I turned it off, and eventually it gave me a feasible run of Chop Goblins. And so it's just really awful because when I think of clones of like your OS and stuff, I don't really imagine many settings being left out. I think 1-to-1, more or less. And so with Chop Goblins, I eventually got it squared away. I sat down and I went ahead and just did the entire run. It's actually kind of funny because it's a silly game. There's no purpose to it whatsoever. You're just walking around shooting goblins, and it really just kind of lets you sit there and do whatever, whenever, and it's a lot of fun. You know, there's not a lot of replayability. I think you're probably going to be going through it twice, maybe 3 times. Or maybe if you're super bored, maybe you'll just go and load it up one afternoon and, you know, just kind of play it from there. But outside of that, you know, there really was no reason to go and revisit it. It never got anything like DLC or anything like that. You know, it was just this standalone game that was just cute and funny, and it doesn't really take itself too seriously, which is really how it should be. But it was one of the few games where I did not have to accommodate for color saturation or any sort of I didn't have to like do any sort of gamma correction. You know, it's just really, really nice. It's like I could just take this raw recording, snip the ends off of it, and be done with it. And so I had never, with all the other games, I had never been able to accomplish that with the capture card. I had never, in my entire time using it, achieved a flawless recording. And so with Chop Goblins, it was really, really nice because I was in, I recorded, I was out, chopped the ends off, and that was pretty much it. It was one of the easier ones I think that I had done that year. And so the game itself is actually very, very just kind of silly and stuff. It kind of, I don't really know what David was thinking when he made the game, because it just kind of takes you throughout different time periods and stuff. And it's almost like he just sat down one day and said, okay, I'm bored as fuck, let's just make some silly ass shit. And so, yeah, that's probably how we got Chop Goblins. No multiplayer whatsoever, it's just a nice little single standalone experience, but, you know, it had its own issues while recording and stuff, and I think that it was worth filming, though. You know, like, I did have a good time with it and stuff. I would like to see more of David's games on the Switch. You know, like, we've got Squirrel Stapler and Iron Lung and Dusk and Chop Goblins and everything, but I'd like to see more of his expanded repertoire and stuff. I think I would enjoy it immensely. So, yeah, outside of that, there really wasn't much to say about Chop Goblins. I mean, this is just such a short experience, you know, it's only like a half hour long. We're about 11 minutes into this commentary and stuff, but yeah, that's pretty much all there was to it. It's just visiting different eras and killing goblins and everything else. So, for those that hung out and stuff, I greatly appreciate your time and effort. And as per usual, be good to yourselves and each other. Till next time, take care.